What is up, everyone? In today's video, we exhaustively break down the city of Venice, Florida. The key here is comprehensive. If you're looking for just one video to serve as your absolute guide to an area versus piecing together all the information you need from a bunch of different surface level content sources, then this is the one. I hope you find value in that, and let's get started. It's extremely close to the beach. First major topic on this list, we specialize in relocation. On to schools and education options. Welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide, your absolute turnkey solution for moving to the state of Florida from outside of the area, the state, or the country. Education, the purchase itself, and all of the logistics. Please use the contact information listed right here. Regardless of your timeline, if you're thinking about making this kind of move, we would love to assist. Relaunched and revamped our new Sarasota, Florida digital guide. It's a fantastic, 30,000 foot view of the area, absolute free. You can download it at this link, our description box below, or just simply email and say, I want the Sarasota digital guide. Includes a flip book as well. Without further ado, let's hop in. Structurally, to be fair with your time and your expectations, what I did format-wise is I took all of my experiences, all of my team's experiences, and bundled them in a way, in essence, give you potentially the ideal search. Macro to micro, regardless of where you are in the funnel working your way down, this video can have an impact on you now or later. The information should be fluid throughout the end of the year and beyond that. Location, where to live within the city and surrounding, the quality of life metrics. We're gonna look at schools and education options and much more. So please use this video like a guide. Please use the timestamps to hop around. And I really hope this has an impact on you right now. Let's get started. First major topic on this list, location. When it comes to geography, where people start in tier 1 of the search, is typically just literally trying to select the main area in the state that you want to live. Where you are in this conversation is you're still at the point where you're taking Sarasota and you're comparing it to St. Augustine and St. Johns County. You're looking at Ocala as well. You're looking Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, vast land, many counties at a time, right? Where Sarasota is interesting in that conversation is you're looking at real macroeconomic kind of location level stuff. And Sarasota is extremely central. It is important, or people deem important in Florida. It exists mostly on the southwest coast. Not all the Gulf, but the southwest version beyond the Panhandle, right? So Sarasota is extremely central. You know, if you want to pick one spot, it's 45 minutes to St. Petersburg and Pinellas County. It's 60 miles to the Tampa airport. It is an hour and a half to Fort Myers. It's 2 hours to Naples. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes to Marco Island. 4 to Jacksonville, 3.5 to Miami, 3.5 to West Palm, right? Hurricane history is really nice as well. Really nice in that argument. Also, what you have to consider, or people are considering, is it's on the Gulf Coast. Do you like the Gulf Coast beaches, right? Pensacola's on the Gulf as well. A lot of the broad comparables, a lot of people are comparing against the Atlantic coast and Biscayne Bay even. You're looking at that, it's different beaches, it's different water, it's different a lot of things. So you gotta look at that as well. And then third would be just the mere size of the city. What kind of pace of life are you looking for? Do you need to work? Do you need to be around more things than a laid-back city would entail? That is, in my experience, what people are typically experiencing in level 1 of the search. Okay, and then we work our way to level 2. You decided Sarasota area is definitely for me. It becomes a 2-county conversation, Manatee and Sarasota. In that conversation, what you're typically doing in the search is you're saying, first, Sarasota itself. This is central in town. It's parallel to downtown. It could go east of the interstate, but it's Sarasota general city limits itself. And then you have Lakewood Ranch to the east, the #1 multi-generational master plan community in the entire United States. Built from 1995 plus. There's not a house older than 1995 in the whole community, bunch of amenities, a bunch of downtowns, the whole works. It's Pleasantville. Then you could say south of Sarasota. That's where Venice crops up. Generally, when people decided they want to go south, Nokomis, Osprey, Venice, Englewood, and Northport are all in that conversation, in my opinion. And then you have western Bradenton. So that's coastal Bradenton. It's still Manatee County, but it's not Lakewood Ranch, right? That's parallel to Anna Maria Island in the middle of Longboat Key. And it's that area you're working your way towards St. Petersburg, Florida. And then finally you have, I would say, other, which would be beaches in downtown. Actually being on a barrier island or being downtown itself. In Sarasota, that's a very kind of exclusive type of house because of where they're based. So I think that's very different than working your way as a suburban comparable for the most part. But that's how you basically start tier 2. And then deciding amongst those 5 areas themselves. First, let's take Lakewood. A lot of people looking remote, we specialize in relocation, so our feedback loop for remote is pretty clean. Lakewood Ranch always pops up in that conversation. You know, one, it's very easy to get your head around. It looks just like it does online. Because of how new it is, you can build amongst tons of different communities. It's just really attractive logistically if you're not from here, all that kind of stuff, right? The big thing with Lakewood is because of the shape of the state and where it's based, it's northeast, the closest community in all of Lakewood Ranch, about 21 minutes one way to the coast and downtown. So 21 to 50 minutes, your range in Lakewood Ranch itself. Because of the shape of Florida, as you go down, the water gets closer to the land. Almost every single community in Venice, almost 100% of them, are as close to the coast or closer. One, the only community in Lakewood Ranch that's that proximity. So that's really how people divide it. The second thing is it's very suburban. Lakewood Ranch is extremely suburban. If you don't want that level of suburbia, full on Pleasantville looking master plan, which is awesome if you do. But if you don't want that, if that's not for you and it's not your style, you like older stuff, Mediterranean, you just don't like that new stuff, I would say that's where people really split on this decision. Secondly, Sarasota's city limits, you're lower than Lakewood but haven't quite got to Venice, offers a lot of the similar perks as a happy medium between the two. Pretty coastal, again, because of that shape. A lot of Sarasota in this area has been mature, it already existed. A lot of it's west of Interstate 75, under 9 miles to the coast. It appears quite patchy, for one. It's not a lot of new construction for the maturity reason. It's way more neighborhoods than like communities, so it's hard to randomly get a gauge of it. It's more house to house than it is like eyeing a neighborhood for the most part and then trying to work your way in it beyond like a Palmer Ranch, the older suburb. The fact that how Sarasota is awesome in that kind of magical triangle that I've explained where downtown Sarasota, Siesta Key, and Lido Beach are about a 6 mile square radius. Because of that though, it makes it very hard to live very close to the beach. If you're not on the barrier island, then you're not gonna be 4 minutes. So if you're already talking 10 or 15 minutes, then people are like, well, can I get more for my money if I'm gonna already drive that, right? We don't have a walkable to the beach unless you're on the beach. So that's where Sarasota city limits would make you consider more things where Lakewood's disqualified, and then you're like, this is anticlimactic, which is most people feel about Sarasota because it's hard to, picture it. And then they're like, oh, what else should I look at? All right, and therein lies the Venice conversation. Venice takes a lot of that, solves a lot of the problems. It's extremely close to the beach. There's no barrier island in Venice. If you look at the map we'll show here, from Anna Maria Island to Longboat Key to Lido Beach to Siesta Key to Casey Key, all barrier islands, right? It's mainland, bridges, beach. You see Venice is not, it's one and the same, right? So because of that, it's way closer to the beach feeling, and it's way easier to live off of the island and still be very coastal, very close to those beaches. Also, what they've done is they've tried to really ramp up from North Venice to South Venice, the new construction. So to have coastal living, brand new, and a myriad of options that are affordable in perspective to the town and even Lakewood is very rare in the state. Besides like a Nocatee or in Jacksonville or a Seaside in Pensacola, it's not that common to be coastal and new. It becomes interesting for that fact. Now the thing is that you have to have already decided I'm doing Venice, or at least you're considering, right? Because not a single person's like, I'm cool with Venice or Lakewood. The whole town's different. If you live in Lakewood, you're going to Sarasota. If you live in Venice, you have your own downtown, your own beaches, right? Venice is 45 minutes one way to downtown Sarasota. If you're not okay with like being a Venice person, it's null and void in the conversation. When you're already looking at Venice, people say, well, I'm on the southern fringe, so I look at the northern fringe, which is Anna Maria Island, like the western Bradenton area. And the biggest difference between those two is Venice is blue collar, old boating, generally more suburban feeling as far as a maturity aspect. Western Bradenton is way more of like city in like a St. Petersburg, Florida way. It's the values of the houses are way bigger divided. Going through gentrification right now. So if you really like that part of town, you could it could be an interesting option, but most people that really fall in love with Venice, Anna Maria feels rough for them. Welcome to Tier 3 of Geography. I told you this was going to be comprehensive. You have decided that Venice, Florida is the place to be. So locationally, what you're working with as a Venice, Florida patron is, let's take travel first. That comes up a lot. You want to go back home or just travel around, right? 2 major airports in Sarasota. Tampa International is probably the biggest one that's close by. RSW and Fort Myers to the south. They're both about an hour and 15 minutes exactly. Sarasota's airport is also getting quite a bit more flights international, especially. So a lot of people are starting to use that as well. And that is north of downtown by about 3 miles. So you're working with about 21 miles one way to Sarasota's airport. And then you have one perk I would say of being in the southern location of the county. If you either have affinity to or family ties to going south, immediate south, like Fort Myers being just an hour, a little over an hour away, and then add a half an hour to Naples from there. So it gives you a little closer distance to that. Venice sits on the interstate system. For reference, it's about exit 200 off of I-75. Lakewood Ranch is about exit 213, 217, and 220. So you're shooting north to south like that. So where Venice puts you is coastal to downtown Sarasota. It's about 18 miles one way, 40 minutes. Lakewood Ranch, which has downtown Waterside now, downtown Lakewood, and University Town Center exists in that area, is about 22 miles one way as well. What you're working with, immediate proximity to things you would find attractive by being a Venice homestead resident. Okay, let's talk our major section number 2, where to actually live in Venice itself. The whole value proposition of Venice really centers around the island. It's around downtown Venice. So the 3 major quadrants, in my opinion, that you can live are broken up on north of the island, on the island itself, or directly east of the island, so central, or south of the island itself. A lot of things change on proximity to the surrounding area, north to south, the city itself, the cities surrounding it as you go about that, price included. So that's what we're gonna break down next, and I hope you find a lot of value in this piece. Okay, let's first go south of the island. This is obviously getting you further from Sarasota. So that's really the main consideration before even broaching the topic of going in this district. If things are important to you north, then it might be completely off the table. Once you get your head around it, there's a myriad of possible advantages for you. So stylistically, just looser restrictions overall. This is way more of kind of a coastal blue collar boating kind of vibe. Because of that, you know, you have looser fence restrictions, right? Like just as an example, you can fence in a lot of areas, bring it all the way up to the street. This is an area that's not master planned to death. So many spots you could park your boat in your backyard, things like that. You know, important if you don't love the suburbs in a traditional sense. Would get you south of the main beaches because, you know, obviously they're on the island. So Western's not too far away, but in South Venice, there's not technically a beach. So they do have a ferry that you can have like a membership to. Takes you to like this private beach. The beaches aren't that far away, but a lot of just boaters in general here. I think one of the main advantages by if you do choose to go south because kind of the land and the development in the area, this is where your huge coastal new construction thing starts to happen at relatively affordable prices in perspective to our comparing suburbs. So I'm gonna park that just because there's so much to say there, and I'm gonna do that here in a second. But that's kind of the overall vibe. Now, let me give you some perspective of just the pricing and the volume. Over the last year, compared to the Central and the North District, South Venice had 73% more sold properties in general. The closest on single families in price, on average price, was 18% more expensive. The closest district to South Venice was 18% more expensive overall on single family homes. And then let me just run you through some of these numbers, you know. Again, perspective of sitting here in 2022 in June. Average price overall south of the island, only $444,000. Single families, only $470K. And then it gets interesting on townhomes, the average price is $389K. And then condos, the average price was $314K. If you're looking for single families in like a safe area, of the 1,988 properties sold over the last 12 months in South Venice, of stuff that's listed on MLS, not all the new construction stuff, 1,538 of those was single family. So if you're looking for that kind of vibe, investment, vacation, or even relocating and you don't want to spend $1 million, I think South Venice is very, very interesting and underrated, to be honest, in the current conversation. Okay, now let's jump back to the nitty-gritty of that new construction conversation. So I cannot overstate enough about going south of the island. What you're gonna get is you could build a new construction home with many options to do so. In perspective, a relatively affordable cost compared to what else you can get in the neighboring suburbs. And to have all of that coastal proximity is incredibly rare in the state of Florida. Other than like a seaside in Pensacola, that's a city they just built by the coast, brand new, there's no such thing as a new city that's also by the water, right? That's the first development. That's what everything was in vogue first. Because of that, all the homes are already there. You know, you can do an urban infill new construction if you can find land and knock something down. You can do condos because it doesn't require a lot of footprint because they're using air for the doors, not width. Makes a lot of sense. The suburbs are built east of the water because the land was there. Other than Anacostia and Jacksonville, it's not that common to have a creative master plan where a bunch of neighborhoods combine with holistic amenities around them and also be really close to the beach. That's what Venice is that Lakewood Ranch is not. Here is called Welland Park, and that's what I'm gonna run through next. Okay, so Welland Park is quite an interesting concept. It's part new redevelopment and it's part branding. So this wasn't always Welland Park. There's a reason that there's 2 districts. So you'll see the West Villages district and you'll see the new Playmore one off of Tamiami Trail. This whole thing was West Villages originally, and then it was kind of rebranded and added to. So because of that, you have interesting options. Like in that West Villages district, you have communities that have been building for 10 years and are still building. So what it'll give you is like amenities that are kind of unique. It'll give you new construction options around mature landscaping because it's not completely platted because it's had time. And then simply one of the most exciting things in the current stage is that there's 10 builders. So because of that, you can pick a lifestyle that you want to live, and then you can pick the neighborhood itself. So unfortunately, that's not the case everywhere I'm building, right? Like let's take Lower Lakewood Ranch, for example. If you have $800,000 or less, then there's a windward in Lower Lakewood Ranch, but the rest of Waterside might not work at all. And then you have the Lake Club and the Isles, and you have some of the most expensive average prices that exist in all of both counties combined. So if windward doesn't work for you, or the school or something like that, it's kind of like you have to change the whole conversation. This is not the case, right? Most of these communities, the average price is pretty similar to each other. As you go from the villas to the small houses to the bigger homes, what changes is maybe the amenities, the style of the builder. Those are more deal breakers here than I think price, in my opinion. So it's great because you can say, okay, I like this district or I like this thing. I don't need that many amenities, so I don't want the fees. Or I want the golf, or I want the kid-friendly amenities. And all of that will live similar to the town. I think that's incredibly attractive for getting the volume of enough builders that are building similar phases at the same time. To expand on the options you have to build and the pricing a little bit, I'm gonna give you a stream of consciousness speed round of running this down. I don't wanna make this video too hairy. I wanna kind of give you a quick 5-minute version of it. So you got those 10 communities. The big thing is here, they're not all these new builders all of a sudden because it's Venice, right? They've already done this stuff all over town. The best way you can see what these things are to see what they already did. One of those builders is Neil. Of those 10, 4 of the communities is Neil communities. Grand Park in Sarasota, Indigo in Lakewood Ranch, Windward in Lakewood Ranch, Canoe Creek in Parrish. They're building in North Venice. You know, they're all around, right? What they have here is they have 2 old school communities. They have Grand Palm, which is in the West Villages district, very similar to Windward and Grand Park, except for like the amenities and the nature centric. That is the community that's been building for 10 years that I mentioned. They have 2 amenity centers, very kid friendly, very nature centric. Great spot to do kind of that Kiowa, Savannah 2 models that a lot of people like in a different location. Boca Royale is part of this branding idea. Boca Royale is technically in Englewood. It's like 20 minutes south of anything else in Welland, and it's an old school golf community, but it's still technically Welland because it got kind of wrapped into it. Their 2 new communities are both in the Playmore district, Wisteria and Avelina. Avelina is a less than 100 home pared down concept of basically just the coastal collection of Neil at their other communities. 3-car garages only. 2,300 square feet plus only. I think that's what that's gonna be. Wisteria then gives you like a smaller concept. Their biggest lots will be 52 feet wide, which would not even fit any of the coastal collection at all the current communities. But it should give you a little bit more affordability, probably more 2 stories than 1. That's kind of Neil's thing. So that's 4 of the 10. You wanna go take the 4 to 5, then Toll Brothers has an interesting community in the new district as well. It's called Solstice. So a lot of people may be familiar with Toll Brothers as the Isles and Lakewood Ranch or different parts of the country. They call themselves like America's luxury builder, I think. If you're not gonna do custom homes, they're right up there with like pretty close to that, like a Homes by Town or something like that. But what they do in Venice is different. They do a pared down concept here. Same materials, same quality, but not as many options. It's not like a starting price like $1 million like Lakewood. I've done several at like 600, 750, and like, you know, regular size homes, you know. If you don't like Neil and you don't like some of the, I guess, mid-level builders, this gives you, I guess, a higher end version. And it'd be similar to Venice Woodlands in North Venice if you've ever heard of that. Let's talk Mattamy. Mattamy takes it to 7 of the 10. Mattamy built Renaissance in the old district. So if you've ever been there, that's a really good example. They're taking that concept and they're bringing it to the new district at a new one called Sunstone. Mattamy typically gives you slight more affordability. It's a smaller builder than like a Neil, Pulte, Taylor Morrison. Similar kind of concept as far as like, typically you can do like pick your own options and structural options, and it's a regular kind of build. So that'll give you 1 in the old district, 1 in the new as an option, which is nice. You kind of get the pick your own builder thing I mentioned. And then let's hop to Lennar to get us almost to 10. Lennar gets us to 9. So Lennar is the biggest builder in America, all-in-one spec, builder grade materials. They are building whether you're coming or not. Typically, affordability comes with that. They're gonna be like through permit a lot of times before they even talk to folks. You don't get to pick your options. But Lennar's done a ton around the area and sisters to everything they're doing here. If you take Venice, Lennar built Grand Paradiso. They built Sarasota National, both in Venice. They built Lakewood National in Lakewood Ranch, Polo Run in Lakewood Ranch. They're building Lorraine Lakes in Lakewood, building Parrish, not as much in Sarasota, but you get the idea. So here they're building 2 main ones that are new. And one's Tortuga. Tortuga, it was released quite a while ago, but it gives you a lot of affordability. No amenities, the fees are low, and Tortuga at one point was the lowest priced single family home that you could build around. So it gives you that option. Welland Park Golf and Country Club is brand new. That's going to give you really interesting, I think. So you got to be okay with the Lennar thing, but you have 18 holes of golf, world-class amenities. You can build coach homes, townhomes, all of that being 7 miles from 3 beaches. I think walking distance to the new downtown. So super interesting. That takes us to 9. And then you have Grand Place, not Grand Place, Sam Rogers Custom. So it'll give you that option as well. But you take that like 600, 750, 800K price point. That translates here, almost all of them you can do something, and not like 1,600 square foot villa. This is gonna be more like what Lakewood Ranch was a year and a half ago. You go take that number to Lakewood Ranch now, even like in the upper north tips, it does not translate very hard. So people are getting bummed out about that, because 700, you don't have 15 options. You don't have 5 options. You might be in a villa, you have a family, then 2 years ago, you might have been dead set on this is the move, and then now you're wondering if you should even move to Florida. This is interesting for that point. If that was articulate enough, I would try to contextualize and bottle that, and that's how I would look at the homes in Welland Park. Okay, and to finish off South Venice, let's talk on a lighter note, a little bit more of a fun one. The idea of a Welland Park town. Waterside is to Lakewood Ranch. It's not enough anymore to have just a nice new construction home in a single neighborhood randomly, right? People are looking for more. I don't know if forced community is the right way, but some sort of way of saying like, are there going to be people into similar things? How do I meet people? I'm not from here. Are there kids similar ages? The cool thing about this master plan, as many people say maybe it's too much, the cool thing about it is that these neighborhoods aren't disconnected. Those 9 different neighborhoods, they're all trying to come to one thing, right? Welland's doing is this whole new kind of downtown one-stop eat, live, maybe even work and play environment called Downtown Welland. So it's gonna be very cool. It's very coastal as well. So again, like now you don't have to just go to downtown Venice. You have this in addition to that, which is a whole nother little perk. One of the big things here, before I forget to note, is the walkability. So that Playmore district, if you go over there, quite lovely by the way, you can walk to the Brave Spring Training Facility and you can walk to downtown Welland. There is not many communities in Lakewood Ranch, I would say, can walk to downtown Waterside. You know, even like Lake House Cove is 2 miles one way, right? So I mean, you have to be like an aggressive walker. So that's something I would say, like walkability in Florida does not mix very well. And walkability, if you're not on the beach, you can't walk to the town. So I'm just gonna kind of rattle off, you know, I didn't memorize these, but I'm gonna kind of rattle off some options. So one is waterfront dining. This is gonna be water-based. So there's gonna be inside and outside waterfront dining. American Tavern and Rooftop Bar is a place that's been announced, which sounds cool. This place called The Yard. So they're gonna do a repurposed shipping container kind of thing. If you look up a place called Sparkman Wharf in Tampa, they've done that before, or the Grove in Wesley Chapel. That's like smaller concept restaurants and maybe small boutique stuff have a chance to thrive. There's gonna be like an outdoors outfitter, Grand Lake and Trail. So there'll be like a non-motorized boat water like there is for Kingfisher Lake and Lakewood Ranch. There'll be splash pads. You kind of get the idea here. Again, when you leave your neighborhood, there's more to do. You have a fun place with green space and safe and everything's super clean and new. I think this area only gets better with time, and I think potentially now we might be on the low end we are at on pricing and all those kind of things, because South Venice does have room to grow. And it could be kind of like a whole nother thing as we go. But I think right now in 2022, it's very, very interesting. Okay, on to main district number 2. We're talking downtown Venice and the central hub. So the south area was a little bit more nuanced, harder to navigate, so we spent a bit more time on that. But downtown Venice and surrounding, very interesting on its own outright. The first main thing here I've mentioned a lot of times in the past, but no barrier island. So look at the beaches south of Venice and north of Venice, right? You know, Casey Key, Siesta Key, Lido, Longboat, Anna Maria Island, right? All barrier islands. So you have bridges that take you from the mainland to the beaches with a bay in between. And then you get down to Venice and you see kind of it combines with the land. Because of that, it changes the feel really. Everything's closer to the beach. So your downtown and your beach are super short walk. Like I've done a video, walked it and talked. Very short walk. Everything just feels a lot closer. The high school's on the island. It just feels really coastal. Like it's the best way to describe it. When you're there, it feels like you're close by the beach when you're at a restaurant. I think a lot of that's just the distance. 2, it makes the whole thing really walkable. If you're on that island, you have walkability to the beach for the most part, almost 100% of it. If you're in like Gulfgate or you know, mainland Sarasota, like Pinecraft or something, I wouldn't say it's walkable to the beach, right? If you're not on the beach, you're not on it. I think that's a different feel here. You know, I think cost is an advantage on a coastal town. Like if you want to live traditional, like I'm trying to live near the beach, cost really jumps up here. I was surprised, you know, and we ran this a bunch of times. It was the cheapest beach town video. But the way I did it was every beach town. You know, I've been getting a little bit more and trying to be completely comprehensive. It's hard for me to like breeze over it without doing all of it. And that's why these videos end up 400 minutes long, which I'll try to link here. But I did every single beach town on the entire Gulf Coast of Florida that was walkable. I only did the walkable district. That was the whole thing. That's like Marco Island to deep tips of the Panhandle. When you rank these, Venice Island, downtown Venice, was the cheapest beach town in the last 12 months, completely overall. The median cost and average of sold over the last 12 months, the listing average of current list, so what people are trying to get and what they did get over the last 12 months, which was a volatile, crazy market, very high net migration, cheapest one overall. So pretty incredible. And you have basically in the last 12 months, on my model I just built here, you had 1,100 properties or so that sold. The island's gonna take you way more to a single family condo mix, almost 50-50 single families versus condos, and your condo average price was only $375, right? These aren't like, you know, high-rise condos. But if you're looking for like kind of a empty nester, snowbird, just a cheap beach property in general, it'd be hard to beat this kind of thing other than like maybe a Madeira beach or something like that. So that's where this really pops up if I just had to summarize it in one way. On to our third major district for where to live in and around Venice, Florida, above the island. Above the island would be Nokomis, Osprey, and North Venice. Here's your major difference, just right to the point. East to west, all of these places are close to the water. East to west. North to south, things change completely. Take, for example, both Nokomis above the island and Welland Park below the island. About the same distance to the same beaches. Nokomis Beach, Casperson, downtown Venice, Venice Beach, and Brohard. North to south to each other, 20 minutes apart. So it takes 20 minutes just from Welland to North Venice. So what happens there is Sarasota. If Sarasota is really hot on your mind, Siesta Key proximity and perspective, downtown Sarasota, if that's really something you're like, I like the south of Sarasota option, I don't want to be an hour from downtown Sarasota, Nokomis is in that conversation. 17 miles from Nokomis to downtown Sarasota where I sit right now, which is also really a lot of the beaches, 39 minutes, right? Same distance to like most parts of Lakewood to downtown Sarasota. But you go to Welland Park and you go 20 minutes to that, it could take it out of some sort of day-to-day ability to go there. You gotta really like Venice maybe more or get some advantage for doing so. If you've crossed that bridge, there's some interesting options, you know? It's, again, this area is more mature, right? It got more mature before South Venice did because it's so close to South Sarasota and Palm Ranch. Because of that, there's not a million new construction options, but there are some, it's not zero. So new construction-wise, you have, you know, just off the top of my head here, you have Talon Preserve, which is DeVosta. DeVosta built Mallory Park in Lakewood, and DeVosta is owned by Pulte. Really nice. They have like an arcade there. There's gonna be a restaurant on site, and it's cool. Palmero is Taylor Morrison's offshoot brand. So Palmero would be more similar to like Casilla at Sky Ranch or Park East or Eves Bend and Parrish, but they're right next to each other, so you go to Nokomis and choose one of those two. North Venice is interesting. So North Venice is basically like opposite here, but Nokomis is coastal, and North Venice would be inland, real close to the interstate. And there's some building over there too. You can do Venice Woodlands, which is Toll Brothers and another builder. You can do a Fiore, which is gonna be a new Neil, and then Neil has another like one that they're actually gonna have multi-family in there in addition to other affordability. There's a brand new hospital going in that district too that Sarasota Memorial's heading up. So if you're in healthcare for jobs and that kind of thing. But again, that's where Nokomis fits in the conversation. And you got some options, right? But not gonna be as many as Welland, and that hence the point of if you go south, you'll get that advantage. But over the last 12 months, north of the island, about 1,100 homes sold as well, similar to downtown Venice itself. This one's gonna be more similar to South Venice in the split of the types of homes. So 876 of the 1,100 were single family. It's more expensive. You're closer to town, right? So the average, the median is not, but the average was almost 800K, right? You get close to Casey Key and close to the water there, and you can get some expensive properties. The condo average was 473K. Reference to that is the condo average cost in downtown Venice was only 375. Condo average south of the island was only 314, right? So this is like a junior Palmer Ranch, kind of, less suburban. This gives you 3 options of what you could do in Venice. I hope that was articulate enough to give you, again, work through this like a model, not like a random fun entertainment video, but that's my premises on the whole thing, right? If you can work from macro to micro, kind of should get your head around how the area relates to the town of Sarasota. And then once you do that, then it starts to be a lot of little hidden value here and there, right? Like, but depending on where you go. But in my mind, if you go on a deemed sacrifice, you should get a deemed advantage for doing so. And that's the way I would work through it. So hope section 2 is valuable, and let's hop and talk about education options. Okay, on to schools and education options. The first thing I want to get across is Sarasota County is extremely highly rated from a public school district in the state. I know a lot of people get caught up on Lakewood Ranch, rightfully so. Lakewood Ranch is amazing schools. But Lakewood Ranch is in Manatee County, and Lakewood Ranch as a part of Manatee County conversation is an absolute gem. Sarasota County as a whole, Venice included, is second rated school district of 67 public school districts in the state of Florida, it's number 2. It's only number 2 to the St. Johns County, which is St. Augustine and Nocatee in the Atlantic coast. The first thing, right? So like, it's not that hard, which I think is rare to the state, and especially bigger cities. It's not that hard to find from kindergarten all the way through high school, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 all the way through, so you don't have to keep moving around. Or if you have multiple kids, like an elementary, a middle, it gets awkward if like the elementary is amazing and the middle's not, and you know, that's a lot of cities like Tampa, St. Pete, and a lot of places does exist. So I think that's a great thing. Number 2 is everyone talks about Venice like everyone that lives there is 100 years old. If you're from here, there's stigmas related to traditionally, it's, you know, it was a cheaper way to retire. It was cheaper than Siesta Key, a little bit more laid back because it's south of like the main industrial district. But you do have to realize there is 5, 6, 7 major schools in the district, including the high school, which is large. No one's really school choicing and choosing to go south, right? Like their sports teams are amazing at Venice Senior High, but for the most part, all those kids live in that district. It's probably a lot more in the current market of the company that you keep that is how aware you are of how many kids are around. I think Welland Park is going to change that because of the community. But I do want to mention, in my mind, Venice isn't some place just to go to retire. I think it's much younger than people realize, and I think it's more about your individual community. Okay, now that we've crossed those 2 points off, let's talk about some of the individual school ratings themselves. So elementary-wise, you have a few different options. Like many areas, the elementary is going to be a bit more abundant than the middle and the high schools. You have Taylor Ranch. Taylor Ranch is a 9 out of 10. You have Venice Elementary, that's a 9 out of 10. And then towards Nokomis, you have Laurel Nokomis, which is a 9 out of 10. And that goes through actually 8th grade, so that would cross to a 9 out of 10 middle school as well. Garden Elementary is a 4 out of 10, so that would be your lowest rated public elementary school in the district. And then Venice Middle School is going to be your main middle school if you don't go to Laurel Nokomis, and that's a 6 out of 10. And then Venice Senior High is the high school. I think they're 5A for like size-wise, and that is a 6 out of 10 as well. If you look at high school ratings and the ones that especially people consider extremely highly rated, like Riverview in South Sarasota or Lakewood Ranch, etc., then a lot of those like really highly rated is a 6 or a 7 out of 10, according to Greater Schools and Niche. It does seem like the elementary schools typically, it's easier to be like the 9 out of 10s. You'll see 9 and 10 out of 10s for elementary, but very rare to see a high school like that. Okay, with that being said, then you have Pineview. So Pineview is the most different. That is located in Osprey. It's a public school for the gifted. But many believe, like many studies have Pineview as the #1 school in Florida, the #1 elementary school in the entire United States, and then the 6th like magnet charter school in the nation as well. That one you have to test in. You can't come in mid-year. And obviously there's a limit to spots and this kind of thing, so it's not anything goes. But that would be a really interesting option. You don't need to live in the district to go to that one. But it would be a really interesting option if that struck your fancy. But all in all, Venice in schools is not going to be an issue. Okay, on to our final section for this video. On a lighter note, let's talk a little bit about quality of life and things to do, and I'm gonna kind of rattle them off. The first thing I wanted to mention was downtown historic Venice. That's on the island. This is like a kind of a throwback in time. This downtown is very quaint, it's very charming. It's a little bit more of like a Siesta Key Village, Anna Maria Island, but more laid back version than it would be anywhere near like a St. Armand's. It's historic beach bar-ish kind of feeling. There's boutiques and restaurants and shops, very quaint and very walkable. You can also walk to the beach from the downtown, which again, it's not extremely common in a lot of places. That's the staple, it really is the hub. Then you have the beaches. So you have Venice Beach is the main beach right straight ahead. And these are more long and lean like a Lido versus like parking lot to water being a huge swath of lands like Siesta Key where people stack. These are more like Pensacola Beach, and Lido where it's long and lean, nature-centric. And then next to that is Casperson. Casperson's the Shark's Tooth Beach. I think the Shark's Tooth capital of the world, technically. Brohard Beach is our only dog beach in the county. So if that's kind of your thing, I know a lot of like agents here and a lot of people in town really enjoy that. And other than like Fort DeSoto, that would be in South Pinellas County, Brohard would really be your jam if you're looking to get the dogs with you. Okay, and the second area I wanted to mention is more of like kind of outdoor recreation if it's not necessarily the beach. Venice is a really nice spot for that too. That's where I would point a lot of people in that direction if they're really into like road biking or hiking or something like that. So Oscar Scherer State Park is one. That's in Osprey, where you can kind of explore around and you can check that one out. I would definitely look that up. The Legacy Trails, the big one, they're building a way where it kind of runs on the old railroad tracks. Basically go from a very long distance from Lakewood Ranch all the way to Venice now. But yeah, really like paved, clean roads to bike. I know a lot of people also like to bike at Casey Key, which is just parallel. It's under Siesta Key above Venice, like a nature feel to this part of town versus like being in the heart of Sarasota. So if that's kind of what you're into, other than like the Mayaca State Park, then I think Venice is another interesting spot for that kind of thing. Okay, and beyond that, Venice offers just a lot of the traditional things that are pleasant, right? You know, the fishing is great in the area. You have the pier, but you also have inshore fishing from a boat perspective. That's really nice up and down, you know, Nokomis, Venice, etc. on this part of the Gulf Coast. Places like Venice Theater to catch a show. You have, like I'd mentioned, like Sharkies, and you have plenty of seafood, obviously, in the area. You have cool coffee shops. It's getting cooler. It's getting more eclectic. There's tons of fitness options beyond outdoor stuff as well. Really, the main hitters about Venice is if you enjoy that more charming, historic, laid-back vibe, you like these kind of beaches versus like a more main siesta key hopping situation as far as like busyness, and you like this kind of outdoor recreation, you're someone that likes to get outside in nature specifically, then I think this is where Venice would be a better fit than maybe some of the comparing markets that are close by. All right, my friends, I think we've covered it. I think we've done it as far as a 2022 A to Z in Venice, Florida, in my opinion. The location and the real intricacies related to that, where to live up and down the island, and my premises related to that methodology, the schools, and then just simply what to do. I hope you found a lot of value in it. And I hope that this helps you navigate it, whether you use my team or not. The purpose is that you don't need to, and if you want to, you can. Beyond that, if you do want to use us, we specialize in relocation. It's very rare for a team to only do what you're trying to do. So the art form around literally trying to help everyone that's watching this, that's all we do all day, every day. So I have so many examples of it. Rhythmic for us. And then I have specialties on my team to give you the best single agent customer service, the best person that's local to that area, plus my whole machine behind it that has a way higher level of knowledge because of the amount of examples we have. The education, the purchase itself, all the logistics in between, we try to make it as turnkey. Like that's my goal, to make it as turnkey as possible for you and your family. Please use this contact information. Please reach out if we can help you in any way. Before you go, if you haven't checked out my free digital guide to Sarasota at a 30,000 foot view, that's a really nice one. It's a flip book. You can download it completely free. Just trade you for an email address. We have a newsletter that comes out that's really way cooler than it used to be. That comes out every Monday if you want to be a part of that. Anywhere you can be in our world that you want to be, please let me know, and we will see you on the next video.